when I think about some of these specific isms and how they've had their days of reckoning, there tends to be a lot about starting with stereotypes and starting to get, starting to really combat what may be stereotypes, maybe definitions, maybe the ways that people look at that. Have you found that there are certain stereotypes that are being challenged, or that we, as regular and ordinary Canadians or citizens of the world, should be regularly questioning or challenging?
Okay, hundreds. And I see them more and more every day, and you could think of stereotypes again, think about our stereotypes about women before, about race before. They abound in the ageism space, and we often don't even notice it. So for example, I let my hair go its completely natural color since I was 18 during COVID, because I couldn't get to a salon to color
I
it, and
love
I
your hair,
always
by
wanted
the way.
to
I
try.
think you
Okay,
you
thank
have to
you.
keep it. Like, please and thank you. It looks so
Okay, I
awesome.
got hair advice from Ali. I got it.
Huh?
Um,
Okay.
but I just now I'm so more aware when people talk about their gray hair and like I look so old, and then their face gets grumpy, right? As if that's a bad thing. Like that's our body. That's what it does. So I think there's just stereotypes just around being old or looking old. And of course, media hasn't helped that. But again, in the book, we look at, and you've seen it, these shifts, like go watch the Oscars and tell me every ad. It's Estee Lauder and L'Oreal and all these with products and services for the 50s,
Okay.
60s, 70 plus, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's even changing. There's Instagram grandmas and that kind of thing. So I think that one, and then other words we use like seniors is even on the altar to be altered. The word care carries so much history of stuff being done to you or for you, and all the patriarchy associated with that. And word is mindset. Language you use, which is linked to stereotypes, is how you think. And so, we're trying to push the boundaries on really a new lexicon to allow a new mindset to emerge. And wow, does this space need a new lexicon?
And just on the two words that you mentioned, I know there's many more, but on the words of seniors and care, what would be some of the lexicon you think we should start using right away?
So it's interesting. The word seniors, in some places, like in my org, we don't use that word. So we say older adults, older Canadians, older people, or aging people or aging adults. In some countries, the elder is held as a very respected kind of aspirational word. So the elderly, our elders, or the aged. In some places, the elder and elderly is still considered, it's got a bad connotation. So that's a little bit more different. And then I think care is, it's just maybe health services. That's what you're doing. You're providing services. And then there's just other words around that. The bedside. Well, why do we have to have an image of people sitting in a bed? Right? There are places in the world where there are no beds. You do not sit in a bed all day. When it's time to sleep, even if you're in a facility, you go to a place and you sleep, just like you and I go to our bed at night. You don't sit in a bed all day. You don't budget entire healthcare systems around bed capacity.
Yeah.
It's just such an old concept.
Well, and interesting enough, actually, the word facility for us is one that we've tried to ban within our
Yes.
organization. Like, we'll talk about
Yes.
community, we'll talk about neighborhoods, we'll talk about maybe sites if needed, but the word facility for us just has this institutional feel, like I'm going to a facility.
Yep.
And
Good for you.
yeah. And so, I mean, at Optima, we think about this as like, when you walk into one of our communities, you're going to walk into laughter, you're going to walk into dancing, you're going to walk into burnt toast because someone was too busy folding things to worry about it. Like, we want people to understand that we're about life, not and dignity, I guess, because someone may pass away with us, but it's because they're having the best quality of life. They have the dignity that they wanted, and then from there, dignified living is, do what you want to do. We'll welcome you home. We'll put you in the right place, and then from there, we'll keep allowing you to do what you do best or what you want to do.
Yeah, and I'd say in general, kind of senior living industry and even our space of home care, We use the word clients, we will never say patients, and you would say residents, I would think.
We say residents, yeah.
Yeah, and then we would say and their families, and you might say that's the same, or we might say care partners. So I think we're a little bit ahead of the curve because we have to be. We can't medicalize this stuff.
Yeah.
And then if dignity is a value, and that transcends the lens through which you design your experiences at Optima, and absolutely we would in home care at St. Elizabeth, well, you would never do things the way we do them today. And that gets back to the stereotype. And I think part of the stereotypes of creating experiences for older adults, whether that's in their living and dwelling situation, their community, or if they're getting care, is because we have not been creative about segmentation, about tailoring and letting people choose the experience and cobble together that makes sense for them, for what they care about, for what they enjoy, what they prefer, and what assets they have at their disposal. We do one size fits all, absolutely, in senior living and nursing homes, and even in home care and hospital care. And that's linked to stereotypes, in my opinion, because we just assume this is the topology of people.
Yeah.
And therefore we're going to design services to match those
Are you,
stereotypes.
one of the things that I find interesting about, and I would completely agree with you on this idea of we do need to do a much better job of segmentation and really at the end of the day, understanding who our clients are, who our residents are, who our key stakeholders are, really, if you think about it, because there's many people there are the residents, but there are their families, there are other people that are involved in that area for sure. Are there some high level types of segmentation that you've thought, hey, like, again, you can go into a lot of depth on them, but high level, maybe there are like a couple of different categories of segments that are worth kind of, again, changing the lexicon first right off the bat?
Yeah, so lexicon, it changes also your offering, it changes your pricing. I mean, it's all of that, right? Like any other normal consumer goods type industry, they hyper segment. They, based on a bunch of variables. I'd say there's 3 or 4 are the big ones that I think is a good starting point for those of us in this space. The first is obviously based on their kind of physical needs. As people move along the life course, and their body becomes more labored, they're going to have different physical capacities, whether that's mobility and movement, cognition, physical health, and that kind of thing. So sure, that's pretty standard. We do that pretty well. We've got assessments to death for that. Okay, but we stop there most of the time. The second is, of course, the sociological context. So around, what past trauma they have, the postal code they were born into, their cultural background, literacy, education, and what kind of support they do or don't have around them. And that could be, family caregiver support, financial support, and literacy, and all those things, right? So that's a whole thing. I would submit those factors are even more important than your more, functional ones. And then the third is around their own, what I call self-efficacy. What is their personal experiences in self-care and self-management and independence, their own knowledge level of how to manage through the aging process, and how much do they want to be doing it themselves versus outsourcing that agency to other parties, like their care provider or like their senior living facility. And we can't tell you, how much agency you should or shouldn't have. Of course, in like Kumbaya land, we would love everybody to have all the independence and have all the choice and all the autonomy and not rely on anybody kind of doing things to or for them. But that is not everybody. And actually, a lot of people don't want that. They do want to outsource their power to somebody else. And because they got other stuff to deal with. And so I think it's the ability to segment on all 3 of those. And like the last thing I'll say about segmentation, unlike more traditional consumer segmentation, this is not fixed. It's extremely dynamic. And so in the book, we talk about this age fluidity. So those 3 variables alone, kind of medical, functional, sociological, and kind of your own self abilities, those could change in a day, today versus tomorrow, or in the 1 hour to the other hour. right? You know, you had
Yeah.
a bad night of sleep, your variables have just changed compared to if you didn't. You have, you know, a hip fall on Friday, everything has changed. Your daughter just had a baby, now she can't be with you 5 days a week. Everything's just changed in terms of your support network. So the ability for a provider of any product, policy, service to be able to adjust to the person at kind of this N of one, instead of what I call a segment of one, which we love to put everybody in one big segment called old. That is the superpower that will come to those who, you know, design the right products and services for this population.